over at BangTheBook.com, where we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of phenomenal content over there for Super Bowl 53, different opinions on prop bets. I've got Rams, Patriots, game and novelty and entertainment props. Admir's got some stuff on the quarterbacks, first quarter, first half, scoring props. We got Danny Vorgs' power ratings pick for the game. We've got my game preview. We'll have a bunch of stuff as we go through the weekend here as well over at BangTheBook.com. Still covering NBA, NHL, and college basketball on a daily basis. Daily picks pieces over there for those. Alan Moody on the NBA, Parker Michaels on the NHL, Kyle Hunter on college basketball. We've got esports articles. We've got golf stuff, soccer stuff. You name it, we've got it all over there at BangTheBook.com. Head on over to our Bang the Book YouTube page as well. Check out the good videos that we've got going up over there. Then, of course, as you know, our sportsbook reviews over at BangTheBook.com. And this edition of Bang the Book Radio, like all the others, presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB200 is the promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino. At BetDSI, it's only a game until you bet it. Two guests on the program here today. We start things off with professional handicapper Brad Powers from BradPowersSports.com. Brad, how's it going today, man?
Man, it's going well. How you doing on this fine Thursday morning?
Doing very well, buddy. Appreciate the time as always here, man. And we're going to start, as we often tend to do during our segments with Brad Powers, with college football. The Super Bowl's coming up. Yes, college basketball is going on. But, you know, Brad's a college football guy. It's kind of our thing here with this segment. Last week you mentioned a very intriguing nugget about Notre Dame and their schedule for next season, playing a lot of teams coming off of bye weeks. What have you uncovered here for this week in your research?
Yeah, unfortunately, not too much. That was something, just a big project that I finished last week as far as getting the early schedules up. One thing that's obviously, and look, it's a major not news week for college football in the last week, but there will be some major moves starting next Wednesday when it comes to recruiting. And to me, how do you handle recruiting? Well, number one, I get it, a majority of freshmen aren't going to impact you for the upcoming season, or will they? I would say, where college football is trend, more young players are contributing more and more. Don't believe me? Flip on the national title game the last 2-3 years where you got a true freshman starting quarterback. Also, the new rules that were in place last year, the fact that freshmen can play 4 games and still be able to redshirt their season. To me, that obviously greatens the chances that freshmen can contribute more in a particular season. And, when you hear about the news upcoming Wednesday, I mean, obviously you're going to hear about a couple of teams at the top. No surprises, Alabama, Georgia at the top when it comes to recruiting classes. But I think a very positive thing when it comes to college football is the teams that right now are ranked 3, 4, and 5. Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. I get it. Texas A&M are still in that southern corridor, but moving more towards the southwest, a little bit different market. I think, generally speaking, college football's got a little bit of a narrative problem right now. It's a very southern-dominated sport at the top. And getting teams up there that are even a little bit slightly out of that region, I think gets more eyeballs on the game in itself, and a little bit more balance throughout college football, I think, be better for the sport.
Well, we talk a lot about what they're doing over at Caesars here on the show, and, part of that is because Matt Lindemann is a good friend of mine, and I'm very proud of what he's been able to accomplish over there. But a couple of days ago, they put out college football odds to win the 2020 College Football Championship, which will be played at Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. Every team was listed. Brad, I got to say, man, lots of value on Akron at 10,000 to 1, Texas State at 10,000 to 1, Rice at 10,000 to 1. How can you pass on those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had more when it came to the futures market. I mean, that's been gobbled up here in the last 2-3 years. I mean, I don't see it changing much. I mean, Alabama, Clemson still coming into next season are clearly the superior teams when it comes to college football. Both quarterbacks, Tua and also Trevor Lawrence, are going to be back. Alabama with a chip on their shoulder for how that ended. And Clemson with all their skill position talent left, the 2 best coaches right now in college football. I mean, I'm Mr. Future Guy. I mean, just a couple of years ago, I was very proud of my Miami and Wisconsin 80-1 tickets, especially the last week of the regular season when the two teams were sitting number 2 and number 3 in the polls, and I got 80-1. The reality is neither one ended up winning the game. Neither one made the playoffs. So while I did a little bit of hedging and made a little bit of money, I just the college football right now in the futures market. I mean, if you're going way outside of the bubble there, good luck. I think your opportunity to make money in futures, for the most part, Heisman Trophy, and then wait till the conference odds come out in the summer. I think you can still get some juicy aspects. You know, UAB I think opened last year 20-1 to win their Conference USA. Utah was 15-1 to win the Pac-12. You could have hedged on that in the Pac-12 title game. That's more of your opportunity to make some money. Alabama, I don't see anyone really breaking through the Alabama-Clemson bubble this year, and if there is one team, it's Georgia, and obviously you're not getting a significant amount of value on the Bulldogs either.
Yeah, you look at these opening numbers, and they have moved, and we'll talk about a team that has moved that I know of here in just a second. Alabama 5-2, Clemson 2-1, Georgia 6-1, Ohio State at 15-1. There's probably a little bit of value in the Buckeyes, but I feel like that number is probably somewhere in the 12-1 or 10-1 range at this point, because I know there was a little bit of chatter about them when this sheet came out. But Nebraska was a team that got hit. Nebraska was 100-1 on these opening odds over at Caesars. I know the offshore market has been a lot lower than that. They're not willing to embrace as much risk, I guess, early on here in the process. But, man, Nebraska is going to be that flavor of the month team, or flavor of the year team, really, in the Big Ten. 100-1. I mean, that actually feels like a pretty fair price to me that people jumped all over.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I hate to sound like Debbie Downer here, but Nebraska's not going to win the national title. So, I mean, could I see him getting to the Big Ten championship game? And if he had a 100-1 ticket, yeah, maybe. But, I mean, what are their chances of I could see him winning the Big Ten West. There's no doubt about that. But are they going to be 12-0 heading into that game? I just I don't see that being the case. Even 11-1, I think is a little bit of a reach. I think the most important takeaway from this is, if you want to get at Nebraska, and I'll be one of those guys that's going to be pro Nebraska this upcoming season. I think bet early than late, because Nebraska is going to get hit on everything, whether it be a season win total, whether it be conference championship odds. We've already seen in a couple of places, offshore, Adrian Martinez, their quarterback, getting hit in Heisman odds. Nebraska is going to be one of the most popular teams, whether it be public or sharper bettors. If you're going to get anything at Nebraska, hit them early. But, I mean, the reality is, it's a relatively light schedule early. I think they'll be 4-0 when they host Ohio State. And after that, I mean, they do host Wisconsin and Iowa. So I guess if they beat Ohio State, looking at the schedule, Adam, I guess I could see them with 10 or 11 wins. So kudos to the guys that hit Nebraska 100-1 and, save the tape here. But I don't think Nebraska's making the playoffs, and I don't think they're winning the national championship. So you'll have to get creative with some of those tickets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either. And realistically speaking, they're probably going to have to beat Ohio State twice to even put themselves in the college football playoffs. So, that's a very difficult thing to do, whether Urban Meyer's there or not. Still a very difficult thing to do. But again, props to what they're doing over at Caesars. And, still, I mean, at the very least, even if we're not betting into these numbers, and obviously unless you live in Las Vegas or in the state of Nevada and have access to the app, you're not betting into these numbers. But at least it's good to see in the last week of January some sort of idea of how these teams, will set up both in their respective conferences and also nationally. I mean, we talk about this all the time. The accelerated timelines for these sports markets are crazy right now. And, you and I were talking about this a little bit. I would not be shocked if after the first weekend of March Madness, or at least after the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, we see college football season win totals at Caesars. It would not stun me at all. So, this is again, we're looking way ahead, but, I don't mind this. I don't mind getting an idea of what I should be looking for and what I can expect.
Yeah, and, that's going to really fast track it for me as soon as I'll probably have to start doing it, and I will. I'll get more heavy once recruiting's after next week. I've been pretty much in the Super Bowl bubble here in Las Vegas, and then on top of that, trying to meander through all the college basketball talk. But look, it makes sense for the book. I mean, they're not going to be at too much risk because they're going to, and rightly so. I mean, they're going to limit the bets, but they're going to get a feel for the market, and more importantly to them, they're going to hold your money for several months at a time. So I like that Lindemann's getting aggressive out there in Caesars. It's good because South Point has been leading the way the last couple of years, and if you got another book that's being as aggressive, if not more aggressive, I love it. Competition breeds the success for the most part, and I think in this instance it's better for the better, especially if you specialize. And I'm doubling up on words here. If you're specializing in one single sport, there'll be some value. Those numbers are going to be soft, and Lindemann does a great job, but you can't know everything about every single sport. That's the problem. And we're all restrained with 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's, like you said, it's smart for them because they're gathering information for when they put out the conference and division futures, when they put out season win totals. This is going to give them an idea of, who some of the sharp bettors actually like to have really strong seasons. And that information definitely worth whatever kind of risk or exposure they put on themselves. So, again, I think it's very smart. I think it's very progressive. It's something that I'm very happy to see. All right, let's go to the Super Bowl here. Look, college football a long way away, but good to talk something a little bit off the beaten path here before getting into Super Bowl 53, because there's really not a whole lot to say about side and total here. It's still 2.5. It's still 56.5. It's been that way for about 3 or 4 days now, and the Super Bowl now really not that far away.
Yeah, and we haven't seen too much lineman. Obviously, the bigger lineman came within the first 3-4 hours of the game actually opening up right on Championship Sunday and into that first Monday. I haven't seen too much lineman, although, look, I know we've had 10-plus days of betting now at this point. The reality is a majority, probably 3/4 of the money is going to show up starting this week and starting tomorrow night in Vegas when everybody gets into town. We're expecting 300,000 plus visitors coming to Vegas, and then the offshore markets, the limits get higher. So if there's going to be a move, there's not going to be anything in the next 24 hours, in my opinion. It's going to come once the bigger weekend money comes along. So I guess my advice to anyone out there, if you're looking to bet the Rams, I think wait. I think you'll be able to shop around and get a 3. Willie Hill right now is offering some 3, but I think more books will be offering that. If you're looking to bet the Patriots, probably bet them now. I don't think this line closes at 3, but obviously if it does go to 3, you're losing a hell of a lot of value. So if you're looking to bet the Patriots, earlier the better. If you're looking to bet the Rams, I think wait, and I think you'll be able to get a 3 out there in the marketplace.
I guess I would sort of challenge your point by saying if you want to bet New England, I think you can wait if you want to bet the money line. If you want to just take away the 2.5 points and not even worry about it at all, then you just take that depressed New England money line price. You may even see, I think there's a minus 130 or so out there on the money line. Pinnacle's dealing one of those, obviously not available to U.S. players unless they've been grandfathered in. But maybe you get a minus 125 money line. Maybe you find a minus 120 that's, rogue and pops up for a very short amount of time. That's something that I would maybe look to wait on. But if you're going to bet the spread, you obviously want 2.5 as opposed to running the risk of taking 3.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And that's, another phenomenon when it comes to the Super Bowl. You get suppressed money because it's an event. You got people, that's the only game they bet all year. And they're going to want to bet a little to win a lot. And one of the easiest ways you can get at it is just betting the team to win the game. So, for all intents and purposes, a lot of those people that walk up to the window are going to say, hey, I like New England to win the game. They don't even understand point spread. What do I got to bet? And when they tell them, at least right now, you got to bet $140 to win 100, I don't like that. What's the Rams? I'm going to bet the Rams just to win the game. What do I get? oh, you can bet 100 and your takeback's 120. Okay, give me that. I mean, you get that phenomenon all Super Bowl weekend long, and I couldn't agree more with you. Forget the point spread. I think that the best, most profitable way, as far as pricing goes, if you want to get cheap at maybe an extra 10 cents of value, New England on the money line. Although I'll say it's pretty fair right now. I mean, for typically 2.5-point favorites, minus 140 is pretty much in line with the marketplace if this was a regular season game. I'm not sure that'll be the case come the weekend. I agree with you. I think you'll be able to maybe get a minus 130 out there. To be perfectly frank, I'll be honest. I'll be a little bit surprised if it goes lower than that. If not, I'll post on my Twitter account. I'll have some bigger New England money line tickets if that's the case. But yeah, New England money line. I'll wait on that one for the suppressed. I apologize for missing that.
No, it's fine. I mean, there's so much to think about with this game. It's just insane. And let's hit the props now, because there's a lot of things that can be done at Vegas sportsbooks with the novelty props, the entertainment props, the broadcast props, all that type of stuff. But the meat and potatoes of the prop betting market, player receptions, player yards, quarterback yards, so on and so forth, all of those available pretty much market-wide. So, Brad, what does your prop betting sheet look like right now in terms of things that you've played or maybe things that you're waiting on to play?
It's probably a little bit lower than most. Again, I'm very much involved in college basketball. I mean, my portfolio is going to be maybe 10 or 12. I'm not like some of these other guys that have 30 or 40 in the pocket already, and that's a good point. I mean, at this point, they've been out for a week, and the Sharps have really picked a lot of these ones over. I mean, a couple ones that I liked. I'll throw one out there. Will there be a 2-point conversion attempt? Westgate opened that up plus 145. That's now even. I mean, nearly 50 cents a movement. Don't like that one as much. And the thinking behind that was, since the rule changes in the NFL, lot greater chance of a 2-point conversion attempt we've seen in the last 2 Super Bowls. There's been 4 of them combined attempted. I thought that was a relatively good prop, but again, Sharps, they took that one to town. Not much value there. So, I mean, if you're looking to bet props now, I would say look for you're going to get, similar to New England, you're going to get some of these props. And if you're not afraid to bet a lot to win a little, I think this weekend's a great time to take advantage of that. And what are those types of props that get some suppression? Everyone wants to bet, will there be a safety? That's the public wants to bet, yeah, there's going to be a safety. Why? Because you can bet a little to win a lot. And recently there was 3 straight Super Bowls that offered a safety, although that's starting to get a little bit dated. But I think you can get a suppressed saying, no, there will not be a safety. I mean, you can get maybe 50 cents or even more than that, maybe 100 cents, 200 cents worth of value on betting. No, there will not be a safety. Same thing goes for overtime. Everyone wants to bet overtime. Yeah, and the chances of that, are very slim. We've only seen 1 in 52 Super Bowls. Everyone wants to bet, yes, there will be overtime. Again, you can get 50 cents, 100 cents, 200 cents worth of value on those types of props. If you're not afraid to bet a little, bet a lot to win a little, and want to bet along with the pros, that would be one of the tips that I'd give you if you're coming into town this weekend.
Now, we talk a lot during the college football season about, game flow, sort of expectation for how some of these games will go, things of that sort. So let's take a look at the New England Patriots side of things first here, Brad. If you're Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, and Tom Brady, what are you attacking? Who is the weapon that you are going to feature in this game? Because you think that's the biggest mismatch for you. Do you have a guy or two in mind that you think the Patriots rely heavily on from a skill position standpoint?
I do like Sony Michel, and maybe I go attempts. I think New England tries to run the ball right at the Rams. Keep in mind the Rams are dead last in the NFL in yards per carry allowed in the regular season. And we've seen New England go, a little bit run heavy here as of late. I mean, they've averaged 184 rushing yards per game the last 4 games. They've tried to control the clock in the last 2 playoff games significantly, have had success there. And I go back to just the thought process of Bill Belichick taking a running back in the first round of the draft. Obviously, he must have thought he had a significant advantage with Sony Michel back 9 months ago. He's used him in the playoffs a lot so far. So I kind of like him from a rushing aspect, Sony Michel. Although, because I think, it's tough, really, with Belichick. He's like, again, a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So maybe I take team total over. It's right around 120 rush yards for the Patriots. They've averaged right around 129 for the season, and again, last 4 weeks have had great success. I think I'd go with that from a rushing aspect, be my favorite value bet. Over, team total over 120 rush yards for the Patriots. When it comes to, the receiving game, this is going to be very public and very, I would say, square, but I'm not afraid. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'll take Julian Edelman over 79.5 receiving yards, and here's my thinking. Number one, Edelman, last year, missed all last year with injury. He was suspended the first 4 games of this year. First 3-4 games back, he struggled, and, he had to get into rhythm and whatnot. Last 11 games, Julian Edelman has topped 79.5 yards, 7 of those 11 games. So I think there's some value there. And on top of that, Julian Edelman in the playoffs, that is Tom Brady's guy. 12-game sample size in playoff games and playoff game only. 10 of those 12 games, Edelman has topped 79.5 yards. In fact, in those 12 games, he's averaging right around 100 receiving yards per game. And one final thing on top of even that, who was the guy that was running his mouth in the Super Bowl media days? Nickel Roby-Coleman, the defensive back for the Rams. Who is going to be most likely guarding the slot receiver, Edelman, for the Patriots? It'll probably be Nickel Roby-Coleman. So I think there'll be maybe a little bit of an axe to grind for Brady and company. Julian Edelman over 79.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I like that one. I like Edelman in the first quarter as well. I mentioned this one earlier in the week. First quarter over 14.5 receiving yards. When you go back to the Super Bowl against the Falcons, Edelman was used a lot over the first 3 possessions for the Patriots. So that's kind of Tom Brady's guy. He's your trusty possession guy. Get some timing going after the 2-week layoff. I really like that one. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. One thing I will say about Sony Michel, I played Rex Burkhead over rushing attempts because it kind of makes some sense with the Patriots. That physical type of game, wear down Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers, make it tough on them in the second half. So maybe you just play, total team rushing attempts over for the Patriots as well. If you're kind of worried about the timeshare with Michel, White, Burkhead, maybe Edelman gets a carry here or there, you never know. You could probably find that prop out there as well with team rushing attempts over. That way you don't have to pinpoint one guy. But I think Michel, in the second half, that's a guy they may look to use a lot. As the game wears along a little bit, fatigue sets in some. Maybe that's something that makes some sense there with Sony Michel, which, would help in terms of a rushing yards over type of thing. How about the Los Angeles Rams here, Brad? What does Sean McVay do in this game? What does Jared Goff do in this game? Who do you think are the highlight players for them from a skill position standpoint?
It's a little tougher for me to really pinpoint that down. We haven't seen as much movement in the marketplace on a lot of their stuff, with the exception of Todd Gurley. And that, to me, is the overall question of the Super Bowl that people aren't talking about enough. Are you kidding me? You got one of the best running backs, one of the best non-quarterbacks as far as a value aspect in the entire NFL. And in the last game we saw him, he barely played. He had 4 rushing attempts for 10 yards. What in the hell is wrong with her? I get it. C.J. Anderson's played well and whatnot, but, by all intents and purposes, Todd Gurley's not on the injury report. Is it something mental? What is it? He's the guy who missed the last couple games of the regular season. Everything we thought was fine and dandy come the Dallas game when he had 100-plus yards, even though he had 16 carries and Anderson still got the workload. I think a lot of it revolves around that. And also, it's a little bit complicated because if anyone's going to dictate anything, Bill Belichick's going to take away one of those guys. And I think he takes away one of the wide receivers, very familiar with Brandon Cooks from his days at the Patriots last year. So, he'll know all the strengths and weaknesses for Cooks. Although I think the most important guy would be, maybe Robert Woods, who's one of the better receivers in the NFL. I know Aikman said that a couple weeks ago, but he's right. As far as importance to a team, Woods is right up there. So it's a little bit tougher for me. And plus, there's still a question mark out there for Goff. Are the lights going to be too big? I came away impressed with Goff when it came to the NFC Championship game. There was no panic when he's down 13-0. In fact, outplayed Drew Brees for the final 3 quarters of that game. I haven't, in my portfolio, just because my sample sizes are bigger, and I've seen the Patriots so many times in the Super Bowl, I have a lot more player props on the Patriots side than I do the Rams side, Adam.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a great unknown here for the Rams. What is the status of Gurley? What does Goff do here when the lights are the brightest? Who is his guy? I mean, Cooks and Woods, both around the same number of targets, around the same number of catches, but you got to think that maybe there's a little bit more comfort with Woods, especially with Cooper Kupp out now. Is that the guy that Belichick spotlights? Because maybe he's not worried about Brandon Cooks. Maybe he's not worried about that deep threat of Brandon Cooks, because if Jared Goff wants to beat him deep down the field, it's a pretty low percentage play overall. So I agree. I mean, I think it's much easier to come to conclusions with the New England side than the Rams side. And, with so many options out there, you're not hard pressed to bet this or bet that. I think you go with what you're a little bit more familiar with. I think being heavier on the Patriots side does make sense.
Yeah, and that's how I've tagged it. And just looking at the market and seeing some of the moves, I've seen a lot more moves on the Patriots side. I think that familiarity, especially when it's historical familiarity, there's always been a lot more unknown when it comes to Super Bowl. Not necessarily the case with the Patriots, even though there's always an unknown on how Belichick's going to attack things. And when everyone thinks he's going to zig, he zags. But that's just how I've attacked it, at least my inner circle of people around here. I've seen a lot more individual player props on the Pats side as far as recommendations, and then overall game flow, how they think it's going to be relatively played, than a lot of people attacking Rams props. Just haven't seen it, and haven't seen the overall market move that much.
All right, so let's go into college basketball here, and let's talk the West Coast Conference for a couple of minutes. One of the smaller conferences in college basketball, only 10 teams here. Gonzaga clearly, far and away, head and shoulders the class of this conference. Is this Gonzaga team as good as the previous ones that we've seen, Brad?
Yeah, I think it is. And at least they're showing it where it matters, and that'd be your pocketbook. I mean, just look at this is remarkable. And we'll get some more broad range. I think the conference is pretty good this year, at least a lot more balanced than what it's been in the last 5 or 6 years. But last 10 games for Gonzaga, this dating back to right around December 18th. Obviously, they've won Gonzaga all 10. They've covered 8 of those 10 games covering by an average of 11 points per game. The most remarkable thing for me is average line. This isn't football. This is basketball. Average line for Gonzaga in their last 10 games, 25.6. They've been an average of a 25.6 favorite, and yet they're 8-2 against the number with an average cover of nearly 11 points per game. That in itself, to me, I don't care what the competition is. The fact that they're laying big-time huge numbers and they're still getting the job done when it comes to the pocketbook and cashing tickets, which is what it's all about. Yeah, I think Gonzaga is just as good as we've seen from them in the last decade. If not, if they're completely healthy, maybe the second-best Gonzaga team we've seen outside of the team that ended up making it to the national championship game. I think I can firmly say that, and we've seen that earlier on the season. They've challenged themselves. Close game against Tennessee, nip-tuck game where Tennessee hit a couple of threes late. Otherwise, Gonzaga wins that game. Tennessee's number 1 in the country. And then as far as the AP poll, and then the number 1 power-rated team, Duke, obviously Gonzaga won that game. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of question marks about Gonzaga. And we'll get into it here. The fact that I think the conference is a little bit better, especially at the top. I think there's 5 top 100 teams this year. I think that's going to sharpen that iron a little bit more than past seasons for the Zags.
All right, so you said you think there are 5 top 100 teams from the West Coast Conference. Who are the other 4, and who kind of stands out from that group?
Well, I think the biggest surprise is San Francisco this year. I know they're coming off a loss against San Diego in their last game, but that San Francisco team, not too much was expected, and I get it. They of all the teams in the conference, they played the weakest strength of schedule so far. But I think, the Dons really, coming into their own here this season. has helped out the conference, and it starts on the defensive side of the ball for them, where they have a top 30 defense in the country. In fact, if you believe the Ken Bomb ratings, as far as adjusted defensive efficiency, even a better defense than Gonzaga at this point, San Francisco has really stepped up. San Diego's a team that kind of was making some improvement last year, but San Diego's a team that's also been an improvement over past editions. San Diego coming off, wins against Loyola and San Francisco in their last couple of games. They've kind of separated themselves and put them in the top 100. And then the other two teams, and these teams have been around here for the last decade when it comes to kind of challengers when it comes to Gonzaga and the West Coast. St. Mary's taking a little bit of a step back this year. They're coming off back-to-back losses, but still from a profitable aspect, 14-8 against the number this year. St. Mary's not as good as past editions, but certainly I have them in my top 40 or top 50 when it comes to power rating. And then, BYU got a big win over St. Mary's in their last game. They kind of been meandering away. It's not one of the better BYU teams we've seen, and they're going to get up close and personal on how good BYU is nationally when they play Gonzaga tonight. But I think all five of those teams, starting with Gonzaga, followed by San Francisco, St. Mary's, BYU, and San Diego, they're all in my top 100, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of disagreement there nationally.
So is this a top five in the conference that just keeps rolling through the regular season, or do you think somebody in that bottom five can maybe sneak up there and spoil the party?
I would have said that Loyola Marymount would have been one to possibly break through there. But, San Diego losing that game here recently, lost to St. Mary's at home, and that was a relatively big loss for them. Just haven't seen them be able to move. I mean, coming up next for them, they got a relatively easy game against Pacific. They should win, and I'd even lean on them to cover tonight, hosting Pacific. They're at BYU. That'll be the big week for them will be next week at BYU and then hosting San Diego. If they can break through into that top five, I think that would be the team that possibly could do it. But I just haven't seen enough of a buy sign from the Lions so far this season to say, hey, they can jump into that mix and compete with the big boys.
Now, are there any situational types of spots you look at here? Do you sort of look to fade teams after they play Gonzaga? Are there any scheduling situations you try to capitalize on?
Well, it is one of those conferences where you can, because they're playing these Thursday, Saturday games. And, again, this is handicapping 101. This is very basic level stuff here. But, it's the one conference where you see teams play 3-4 straight road games. And a lot of times at the end of that road trip, especially if it's kind of, you're playing 2 road games in 3 nights, those are ones that I don't mind taking advantage of, specifically if they're played at that, that last one. And Gonzaga's kind of in that situation, although they've had a week in between games here. But they're playing their final game of a 3-game road trip, and they're playing in altitude. And look, I'm not going to fade Gonzaga tonight, just because they've been so dominant against the number. But I'm not going to play on them tonight, laying 14 on the road in what I perceive to be a relatively bad spot. BYU's been sitting at home eating cheeseburgers all week after, beating St. Mary's a week ago. So if you're looking for a situational aspect, I think the situation, really calls for BYU tonight in a good situational spot. That's a lot of times you get that in this conference. Yeah, you're playing 2 games in 3 nights, and you're getting teams playing 3-4 straight road games and 3-4 straight road games. I usually like to take advantage of the home teams there.
Brad Powers, professional handicapper over at BradPowersports.com. What's going on over there right now, man?
Yeah, you go to BradPowersports.com. Super Bowl issue you can just download for free. Just go down to the free picks, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and get the whole Super Bowl issue for free. So if you like what you see with the Super Bowl, don't grade me too harshly if the pick in there doesn't win. But I am on the under, just for everyone out there listening. But you can check out the Super Bowl issue. And if you do like what you see, early renewal offer for the football newsletter, just $69. You'll be covered through Super Bowl 54, $69, entire football season. We talked at the start, and I apologize for not having some great future takes. But we do in the off season really take advantage of season win totals, futures as far as conferences, and whatnot, and you get that monthly during the off season. $69 for the newsletter. If you're interested in college hoops, $199 is VIP. That's daily emails that you get as far as VIP. Go to BradPowersports.com.
I got to say, man, you and I have talked about this before, and I know you and I have talked about this in private as well. $69 for that newsletter is the best buy in this business. I mean, for the information that's out there and also the success rate that you've had with college football in the NFL, dude, you're selling yourself way too damn short with that thing.
I know, and it's funny, and I know you got another guest coming up, but 57% is the record over 4 years. We're talking nearly a 700-game sample size, 57%. And I put in there at the end of the season a little questionnaire, give me any feedback. I want to hear from you. And they fill it out, and people want more. Can you believe that? They want more picks, more of this, more of that, and they want it for no charge. It shocks me. Love my customers, very thankful for them, but it's unbelievable to me that they're not satisfied with that $69 newsletter, 57% winners, and all the information on top of it that's in there on a weekly and monthly basis.
Well, I think it's a fantastic piece. And, as we talked about here to kick off this segment, the idea that this college football timeline is just flying by this year already, maybe a good time to start looking into something like that over at BradPowersports.com. And you can follow Brad on Twitter at BradPowers and the number 7. Brad, as always, brother, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for chatting with me, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Take care, my friend.